Today, we discuss what it means to have guardrails put up in your life. Let's talk about that. Welcome to the show, everybody. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us today. We love you. We appreciate you. And today's going to be a great topic, I think, Pastor Whitley.
I think so too.
So welcome to Let's Talk About That. I'm your host, Daniel Scott, and joining me today is my lovely Pastor Whitley. I'm going to keep playing with these intros until I find something that sticks. I think that was it, though.
I don't think that one was it.
My lovely Pastor Whitley.
Yeah, I don't think that one was the one.
Oh, maybe not. He's blushing, y'all.
It's just hot in here.
Oh, that's it. At least I got the fan on. So how are you today, Pastor?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am fabulous.
I'm excited about this dad joke.
Me too. Actually, a fella at work gave this joke to me, so I'm very excited about this one. So let's go ahead and kick off the joke of the week. Joke of the week. What side of the turkey has more feathers?
Ooh, I don't know.
The outside. Oh. Forgot I had the effects turned down. Golly. I'll get the hang of this one day.
That was great.
Oh, yeah.
The outside.
The outside of the turkey, of course. If the inside of the turkey had more feathers, I'd be kind of worried. But that's just my opinion. All right. Today we got a great topic for you, a loaded topic, if you would. One of Pastor Whitley's particular favorites, and probably one of my favorite series that he taught here at the church. How many years ago? Year or two? Yeah.
May have been a little more. I think it was...
may have been longer.
I think it was 2020.
It may have been that long.
The year of COVID.
Oh.
Because the only reason I say that is because I think I remember part of that being streamed.
You may be right. I think that may be right. Wow. That was a long time ago.
And we didn't have internet then. So it was always a fight with the stream.
Yes. The good old days.
Yeah. You know, for those good old days, I'm not sure I want any more of those.
Yeah, when we hear our grandparents talk about the good old days, we're like, oh, that must be so awesome. But when our grandkids hear us talk about the good old days, they'll be like, we don't want none of that coronavirus.
Yeah.
That mess. All right, but welcome to the show. Today, our topic is going to be talking about having guardrails set up and placed in your life.
That's good.
Guardrails, fences, whatever you want to call this particular topic, but it's extremely important that we have something set in place in our life to keep us separated from the things that God doesn't want us to have contact with, to have, or to contact us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's certain things that can enter into your life that can contact you, and it can become a part of you. Like a leech.
Yep.
Like you don't want nothing to do with a leech, but it contacts you and gets a hold of you and starts draining you.
Sure.
There are things in our spiritual life, even our physical life, that can latch onto us and drain both our real life, our mental health, drain our spiritual life. So It's important that we have things in place to help those. So today we're going to talk about that topic of guardrails. So Pastor Whitley, let's kick this off.
Right.
What does it mean to have guardrails in our life?
Guardrails. I'm not sure if you've ever used one. Unfortunately, I have.
Oh, I have not had that privilege.
Let's pray you never get to use one. It's one of those things you're thankful for, but you don't ever want to have to use it. I know that we're gonna make the connection spiritually today. So let me say this before I talk about exactly what a guardrail is.
Right.
Every time I think about a guardrail, a guideline, or a fence, or anything of that nature, I always think about one of the factories that I've worked in. every machine, it was mandatory. Every machine had to have a sign on it.
Yes.
And that sign on every machine said, "Do not operate without guards."
Right.
And it had this really comical animated picture on the sign. And it was like this, this animated hand that was all crumpled up going underneath the roller
Yes.
of a machine, and where somebody had taken a guard off that needed to stay on the machine. And it was very revealing, not only about the machinery, but about our spiritual life, that we should never operate anywhere in our life without those guards, because those guards are there for our protection. Now, a guardrail specifically is designed to keep vehicles from moving into an area that is dangerous or off limits.
Absolutely.
Not just the dangerous places, but they also put those guardrails or the barriers up when an area is off limits. In our personal and spiritual life, we also know that there are areas that are dangerous, as you've already said, but it also should be off limits.
Absolutely.
So in our personal life, in our spiritual life, then a guardrail keeps us from moving, from merging, from swerving into an area that could be dangerous or off limits to us. Number one, if we don't have any dangerous or off limit areas in our life, then that should be a big indicator already that we've already set ourselves up for failure. If we're living our lives and we don't have guardrails in place, or let me back up. Forget the guardrail for a minute. If we don't have areas that are off limits,
right? If
we operate with no limits, no boundaries, no fences, no lines, no guidelines, what is a river without the banks?
Ooh,
it's a swamp.
Yeah,
it's the lines, it's the boundaries that give it depth. It gives it. We could say even the flow. The flow comes from the boundaries. And so if we want to be a swamp, then get rid of the lines. And I've never seen a swamp, produce anything but 10 million mosquitoes.
And alligators.
Yeah, depending on where we are, alligators and leeches.
And no ropes.
Right. So you'll never have somebody in the back of an ambulance with a broken neck, a broken back, and probably a broken chance of walking again. You'll never hear that person say, "I sure am glad that there wasn't a guardrail there."
Wow.
But you will hear somebody screaming instead, "Why was there not a guardrail in place? Yes. Why did nobody put a guardrail next to the cliff? I've just went off the cliff. If somebody had put a guardrail there, then I wouldn't be in the back of this ambulance. I might have gotten away with some minor scratches, some cosmetic damage to the bike, whatever, to the vehicle, whatever it is. I wouldn't be lying here at the bottom of the cliff."
Right.
Guardrails are put up in the most dangerous areas. They are. Let me back up. They're not put up in the most dangerous areas. They're put up just short of the dangerous areas.
That's really good.
When you hit the guardrail, you do have a conflict. You have a crash, but it's a little crash compared to the crash that you would have had the guardrail not been there.
Absolutely.
The guardrail keeps you from having the big crash. Just making an observation on the roads of our life, not personal life or spiritual life, but on the natural roads, where do we see guardrails? Well, number one, curves.
Right.
And a curve is where the road could take an unexpected change. You could unexpectedly alter your course when you go around a curve. So they say, well, let's put a guardrail here because somebody might not realize this is a curve. Even though we've had signs up that say, there's a sharp curve ahead, take it at 35 miles per hour.
Right.
Somebody might have missed that. So let's put a guardrail up to keep somebody from running off the cliff. Well, then there's the medians. Medians are whenever we are close to people that are going the opposite direction.
Right.
And what better place to have a guardrail spiritually than when we are coming in contact with people that are going the opposite direction in their life.
Right.
Going the opposite direction than what we are going. So The third thing I would say is a bridge. We have curves, medians, and bridges. Let's just say on a bridge, depending on where it is and what the bridge is for, there's probably very little room for error. So it'd be a good idea to have some barriers, to put some guardrails up, on the bridge, because most bridges are put there because you are traversing a ravine or a river, something that you cannot, you couldn't ordinarily pass over or through under normal circumstances.
Right.
So now that I'm on this bridge, give me some guardrails to keep me from running off of the bridge. They're not located in the most dangerous place. They're located just inside that dangerous place because the most dangerous place is on the outside of the guardrail. What's just on the other side of that guardrail is the dangerous place. The
That's
guardrail, some people say, well, I have guardrails up, but I keep having the crash in this spot. Well, the problem is they've got the guardrail set too close to the bad spot. It does no good to put the guardrail at the bottom of the cliff.
No, it doesn't.
And people are like, well, I have guardrails. Oh, yes, you do, but it's at the bottom of the cliff, and it really does you no good because you've already made the fall.
Absolutely.
So the guardrail keeps us from straying or swerving into the most dangerous areas. So when we put guardrails up in our spiritual life, it's not to say that, hey, I plan on going this direction. No, it's more, nobody says, I need to get over and fly off that cliff. Let me run through the guardrail to get there. No, it's guardrails. Right. We don't put guardrails up because we intentionally plan on going into the danger zone.
Right.
We put guardrails up because we might accidentally swerve or miss a turn or whatever, and the road makes a sudden change, and all of a sudden we've hit the guardrail.
Wow.
We put it up there because of accidents, but not because. And if you have a problem, obviously you should, you should deal with that too. You should definitely have one there if you know that you have a problem. But we put these things up.
Absolutely. Nail on the head right there. Sorry, that was a little loud.
No, that's good. I'm thankful for the fans there. But we put them up. We put them up to keep us from having a big crash.
Absolutely.
That's my thoughts.
So, got a couple of wandering questions here I'll throw at us off script. So just north of here, for those local, right here on 22, there's a segment, I don't know, just past Milledgeville, 8 minutes up the road, whatever you want to call it, 10 minutes up the road from here. And it's guardrail on one side of the highway and not the other, which the tragic part there is the side that doesn't have the guardrail is just as dangerous as the side that does have the guardrail. That's exactly right. So relating that to our lives, there are places in our life where we set those boundaries, where we set those guardrails.
Absolutely.
But sadly, it's just like you said, we set them in a place to where it's too late sometimes.
And somebody can comment and correct me, and you can correct me. Didn't God tell Moses, he said, don't touch the border of the mountain?
Yes.
God told Moses where, he said, if you touch this place, you're going to die.
Yeah.
He said, so here's the border. Now you set the boundary.
Yeah.
You determine where you're going to put the fence.
Absolutely.
So how close are you going to put the fence to the boundary? Are you going to put the fence close enough to the border of the mountain so that, and I've given this example a lot, so that let's say that your kids are playing ball out in the yard and they kick the ball over and it goes through the fence and they reach through the fence and they touch the border of the mountain.
Right.
Are we going to put it close enough where they can reach through the fence and touch the mountain? Let's make it for us. Are we going to put it close enough in our life where we could accidentally touch the mountain? Are we going to put it far enough back that I don't have to worry about, hey, I might stumble and fall over the fence and land on the border of the mountain or whatever. Wow. It's a caustic example, but all of a sudden it cost me my life. So just being, like you said, being very conscious of where we put that guardrail, where we put that fence or that guideline. What's the old saying? Before you move a fence, make sure you know why it was put up in the first place.
Exactly.
It's not just about what the fence is keeping in, but what is the fence keeping out?
Probably one of the most important things. What is it keeping out?
Right. I mean, you let the predator predator loose in the middle of the sheep pasture with the sheep. A friend of mine, he raises cattle, and he has a neighbor that raises sheep. Well, there was a dog in the neighborhood that got loose, and the dog got into the pasture with the sheep, and the dog did not eat any of the sheep, but accidentally killed one and went right through the herd and killed every single one of them just playing with them.
Wow.
So, there was a breach in the fence. The dog got through. A dog that was not supposed to be in there got through and playfully killed every one of the sheep.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
We could relate that to our spiritual life. What are you allowing into your life and into your family's life?
Absolutely.
Whether it's something that looks cute and fluffy and innocent.
Right.
You may just think that it's old Rover there just getting out there and playing with the kids, but
yeah,
before you know it, what danger have you put your family in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes the worst thing, and you probably don't think about this until you become a parent, but the worst thing that we can allow into our family's life is something that we could have prevented.
Yeah.
And it ended up hurting or killing them anyways.
And at the end of the day, you have to lay your head down on the pillow knowing
Absolutely.
that you could have prevented it had you only done what you should have done to start with.
I don't think there could be any more guilt than if I knew that I had a part in playing the death of one of my children.
Yeah. And
I think something like that spiritually is even true. The newborns into the church,
yeah,
spiritually, of course. If I allowed something into their life, or if I brought something into their life that doomed them and killed them spiritually,
what obstacle am I putting in their path?
Wow, God,
what roadblock am I putting in their way? We recently heard, I can't remember where we were, but it was it may have been the Ignite teacher training this year at Camp Lake Benson. Maybe been Brother Aaron Soto, and he was talking about the obstacles that we put in our kids' paths.
Wow, that's powerful.
And he really started at the beginning, and he said, "Okay, so let's just whatever sport you want to push them in." He said, "Okay," and I'm not for or against anything. I'm just making a point. He said, "Well, there's a lot I'm for and there's a lot I'm against, but I'm not doing that. I'm not making one here. I'm not I'm not standing on a firm point here."
Another podcast episode.
Yeah. So he said, you start them off in this endeavor and you're faithful to it. You even put other things aside. You sacrifice for this. They go to college on a scholarship to do this endeavor,
right?
To play this sport. He said, the chances of them becoming professional are very slim. He said, but let's say that they do. He said, let's look at the college years. More than likely, they're going to practice on Wednesday night. More than likely, they're going to practice on Sunday or have a major game on Sunday. He said, now let's say they go pro. More than likely, they will have a game every single week on Sunday, the day that we have traditionally or typically set aside to worship.
Right.
He said, now what will you do? Because you've sacrificed all of this. He said, and typically people say, I'm going to justify it and just I'm going to let it go on. He said, but what if you from the very beginning, if you never would have set that roadblock or that obstacle in their life, that hurdle that they're going to have to try to get over at some point in their life, that's going to compete with their time with God and with meeting in the local congregation. What if that was never introduced into their life by the parent who probably pushed them into it? So really being conscious about what we introduce, like you've said, what we introduce into our children's life, knowing that there could be eternal consequences because of it.
Wow.
And that's that's a scary thing as a dad.
Extremely.
Scary thing as a husband, as a father, as whatever.
Yeah.
It's a very sobering thought.
Extremely. And I'll use this to kind of go along with that. And this is probably more of a caustic example really here, but something that probably a lot of us can relate with. Do you just give a loaded gun to your child and say, here you go,
No way.
have fun. If we wouldn't do something as extreme as that, I'm an extreme advocate for gun safety. If you're going to practice that, have that anywhere
Absolutely.
near your home or your family, you got to be safe. But it goes along with every single other thing in our life. The phones, the tablets, the video
Sure.
games, the movies, the TV shows, or even the friends that we allow into our children's lives.
Absolutely.
Or even the extended family members that we allow into our children's lives, or our lives for that matter. Are we going to be just as extreme as that? Or are we going to say, you know what, let's just give our kid a loaded gun and let them have at it?
Just give them a loaded friend.
Yeah.
Just give them a loaded family member that has adverse ideas.
Yeah.
And let them convince them that none of this is real.
Give them an unlocked tablet, phone, what have you, with
eternal consequences.
Yeah. I mean, that's an extremely scary and sobering thought that has become so extremely common in our society today. Probably more common than giving your kid a firearm. Or a buck knife or whatever, katana.
Yeah. If we're going to be radical, if we're going to be radical about anything, let's be radical about making disciples out of our children.
Yeah, it's all about being smart in your life.
Absolutely.
I mean, just use a little common sense.
Yeah.
For some people, a lot of common sense, no matter what it is in your life.
That's in short supply these days.
Oh, it is. It is.
Can't buy that at Lowe's.
No, you can't. Let me move along because I'm dragging this episode out.
It's good.
But you've been to the Grand Canyon.
Sure.
This is another off-the-cuff thing, but you've been to the Grand Canyon. Is there a lot of guardrails?
Not as many as you would think.
Right.
In the major,
tourist.
Touristy areas, like where all the tourists are going to go, and
right.
And they're gonna look out over the canyon or whatever. But most of the trails around the rim, whatever, no guardrails.
But even when there are guardrails, how close are they to those canyon walls, would you say? I've never been, so this is just curiosity.
I'd say 15 feet.
Wow.
I think, and
that's even kind of far. I was expecting them to be a lot closer, honestly.
And I was going to say maybe even less in some of the more touristy places, because they want, we want to get a good view.
Yeah, got to get that photo op.
The first time I was there was actually a man and a woman, a couple. He was taking pictures of her next to the canyon, and in an area that did not have a guardrail. He kept telling her, saying, just back up a little closer.
Oh,
let me get
no.
it. She actually slipped and fell. Now, fortunately, she did not fall far. She did sustain injury, but she did not lose her life. But
oh my Lord. Talk about introducing something into your family's life that can harm them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just back up a little farther.
Oh my gosh, the guilt there. Oh my Lord, the guilt.
It's not that big of a deal. Just back up a little. Back up a little more.
Yeah.
Let's just keep backing up.
Let's just watch this. There's a little bit of something in here, but the kids are mature enough to handle it.
Yeah. No, nobody's mature enough to handle it.
Wow. There was a classic movie that only heard about it. The Sandlot. Somebody may have heard of it at least, right? But what was the main or primary source for that movie? There was something dangerous on the other side of the fence.
So true.
There was something dangerous on that other side of the fence. And the closer you got, of course, those kids thought it and saw it as this giant monster of a monster, the beast. Yes, the dog. And in the end, it just turned out to be a regular dog. But, still, the premise of that movie was, to try to get past the fence. They would try to cross the fence. They would try to take the little buckets and pans and sticks to stick through because they lost the ball over there.
Yeah.
I've summed the movie up for you I've ruined it for you now. But they tried to scoop the ball back, and the beast would always get to the ball and destroy whatever they had. Mm. But my God, how does that relate to our life spiritually? We got the fence set just enough that, we're safe, we're okay. The fence is tall, the fence is wide. It keeps the dangerous things out. But then we get closer and we keep playing with the beast, and we get closer and we try to see the beast and we try to see what's going on. But my God, spiritually, how does that relate? It's crazy.
So what you're saying is, the moral of the story is, we need to quit playing ball in the backyard of the beast.
Oh, is that a message? If it's not, it should be.
Yeah, go ahead. You can preach it.
All right, we know the message for Sunday.
That's right.
I'm kidding. All right, so next question. What are some ways that we can set up those guardrails or fences or means of protection in our lives?
Accountability.
Our families' lives.
Accountability.
Absolutely.
Number one.
I
was ready for that one.
Yeah. He hit the nail on the head with that one too.
Musicians come. Accountability is number one on my list. And the thing about accountability is you can't be accountable to somebody without being submitted to somebody.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
We will never be accountable if we are not submitted to spiritual leadership in our life. The question is, does anybody have veto power in my life?
Wow.
Can anybody tell me no?
Wow. That's good.
Our country has a system set up of checks and balances.
Yeah.
Do we have that same system set up in our life?
Mm.
As a married man, my wife has all passwords and access to everything on every one of my devices. That's not a control problem. That's an accountability issue.
Yeah.
I'm accountable to her. I'm accountable to spiritual leaders. If any men that are listening, if you have a problem in any area, whether it's on a device or a coworker, that you
Absolutely.
have an unholy admiration for, or you spend a whole lot of time with, tell your wife. She'll solve it.
Yeah.
She'll fix it for you. Don't worry. One way or another. Before I was married, I had a curfew.
Yeah.
Well, we were around each other a lot then, considering that we married
sisters.
Sisters, yeah. So, I did that make sense?
Yeah. In the natural, we married sisters.
Yes. So
I'm still playing with that. We both are.
I'm not sure.
What?
Yes.
Our wives were sisters.
There you go. They still are, but
they still are. They quit being sisters. My bad.
Yes, but I had a curfew.
Yeah.
Even then, and even after I turned 18, I had a curfew. When I was at home, even after I was 18, I still had to abide by my parents' rules.
Yeah.
Now, some people say, well, they're in my house, but they're 18, they can do what they want to. Well, that didn't work in my house.
Mm-mm.
I don't care if you're 27, if you're still living it. If I was still living at home when I was 27, it was their house, their rules.
Absolutely.
So there was always that, and not necessarily spiritual accountability there, but there was natural accountability between parents and children. And I use those two examples because I feel they're most prevalent in our world, because I think that's where we struggle with relationships. Need guardrails.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of our relationships, especially what's that kind of like a romantic relationship?
Yes.
It needs guardrails.
Absolutely.
If the other person in your relationship doesn't care about guardrails and has no plans to respect yours, then they're a loser. and you don't want to marry them anyways, because they're basically they're a loser.
Right.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
Oh, that was the wrong one. Air horn. My bad.
That's loser qualities.
Yeah.
They have no principles in their life.
It's like anybody that you would be looking to hire.
Absolutely.
If you're wanting to hire somebody, you're not going to say, well, what do you have in your life? What do you aspire to be? What, are you on time for anything? Or
the last place I worked, the last place I worked in Jackson, they ran credit checks.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome.
Depending on what position you were applying for, they were going to run credit checks, because that's
good.
That's a good indicator of principle. It's not everything, but it does say something. Going back to the romantic relationships, if they don't have guardrails or guidelines right now in their life, and you're dating them, they're not going to have guidelines or guardrails when you get married.
Right.
And the problems they have now, they're not going to get better once you're married to them. They're actually going to be magnified. They will exponentially increase once they're married.
Yeah.
So, you can wonder your whole life if your spouse is being faithful or not, but I never cared for that kind of life. So I wanted to court someone that was disciplined, that had principle.
Absolutely. For you young people listening to this, find you someone with morals.
Yeah.
Find you someone with a prayer life.
If they won't be faithful during the engagement, they won't be faithful during the marriage.
Exactly.
And that's not just faithfulness to commitment and guardrails. That's faithful to you as their spouse.
Well, in many ways, because it's just like you said a while ago. Maybe you have this priority set in your life. You have this rule set in your life that you will never drink Mountain Dew. Using something caustic here, and that person has an obsession with Mountain Dew, and they bring Mountain Dew around you constantly.
Sparkling ice.
Yeah. Not a sponsor yet. A wonderful person, Pastor Whitley, brought me a sparkling ice with caffeine.
You're welcome.
I think I found a new addiction. But what was we talking about?
Commitments, faithfulness.
Somebody that doesn't have commitments and they don't abide by those, if they don't respect you when you're dating, or if they don't respect you while you're friends with them, and that's not a romantic relationship, just a friendly relationship. If you have friends that don't respect your morals, respect your religious beliefs, and so forth and so on, if you have friends like that don't respect any of those things, then they're going to take you to places you don't need to be or don't want to be.
Yeah. Another area I think we need guardrails besides those relationships would be in the leadership role that we are serving. We need a guardrail. As much as relationships have the power to destroy us, power has the potential to pervert our purpose.
Absolutely.
If there are not guardrails set up, then we'll end up being a long ways away from where we really wanted to be, because we let the power, the control, the influence that we had, whatever, go to our head.
Yeah.
Another King Saul in the making.
Wow.
We have to make the choice to let other people speak into our lives.
Absolutely.
I'm going to let them speak into my lives, I only have one, into my life, and I'm going to heed what they say. I may not like it, but I need to listen to the critics. I need to listen to my critics.
Absolutely.
I need to hear what they're saying, because maybe there could be some truth in what my critic is saying.
Yeah.
So we have to make the choice to let somebody else, and I might be criticized for this, and that's okay. Give somebody else a break. We have to let somebody else question our motives.
Yeah. That's good.
It really is. I want to do this. I can say, I want to do this for God. Do I really want to do this for God, or do I want to achieve this for my own prideful ambitions?
Yeah.
Who am I really? Who is it all about? Is it all about Jesus? Are we promoting Jesus, or are we promoting us? I just realized that if you take JES off of Jesus, you get us. So, is it about us, or is it about Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah.
So ultimately, that
goes right along with last week. Are people just doing it for a camera?
Right.
Are people just giving out money for their own fame and fortune? Is it even real money in that case?
Yeah.
Not saying anything.
Monopoly money.
Yeah. The camera never seen the Monopoly money, though. We'll edit it to look like real hundos.
That's right. I don't even know what those look like.
Oh, what is that? I'm kidding.
Somebody out there's listening.
Probably. So, following up to our last question here, if you got anything else you want to throw in there, just have at it, because this is a topic that you taught for several weeks, if I'm not mistaken, and there's unlimited potential here to continue it on. We may even just do a part 2 next week on the same topic.
I was really trying to narrow it down, just in case.
Yeah.
And I had so much to say, I didn't want to say too much. It's like the young politician. He would speak to the farmers, and he gets there, and there's only one man. And the one man looked at him, and he said, "Son, I'm a cattle farmer." And he said, even if I go down to the feed trough and there's only one calf there, he said, I'm still going to feed it.
Yeah.
So that man, he got up and he gave his best speech. And 3 hours later, he got done. He walked down to the man. He said, what do you think? He said, did I do all right? He said, you did fine. He said, but I forgot to finish the story. He said, I don't pour the whole bag of feed out for one calf. I wasn't trying to pour the whole bag of feed out.
Yeah. So you got a part 2 to joke of the week now. Love it. All right. So to follow up to our last question, and we can probably add some more to this if we need to. What are some resources that you would recommend to help us build better guardrails and better fences and better protective measures for our lives, for our families?
What area do you want to start in?
All of them.
Let's see. I would say I'm outside of relationships, and we can talk about relationships in just a minute. I think outside of relationships, our one of our biggest hindrances are the devices that we use.
Absolutely.
I personally have found that Covenant Eyes works best for us. I think it's like $20 a month or something. We use Covenant Eyes for every device in our house. We mostly have Apple devices, iPhone and iPad. That's what I do all my ministry stuff on. We do have a laptop. We'll keep up with the homeschool stuff or things that we can't do on a phone or a tablet. And it's Windows. It's not an Apple device. It works. Covenant Eyes works really good on the Windows devices.
Yeah.
It works really good on the Apple devices too, but it needs to be paired with restrictions.
Okay.
That's good on Apple devices. As far as screenshots go, like your background, when you're on an app, you're still using internet, and it's still searching the internet in the background, even though you're not on Safari. So Covenant Eyes will pick up on it, but it's not able to take screenshots of that on an Apple device. The only screenshots it can take are on Safari, or if you use the Covenant browser app. So the Safari app works a whole lot better. So we use the Safari app, Safari browser, and Covenant Eyes is allowed screenshots there, and then it kind of monitors the background activity. But on that on the laptop, the Windows laptop, it takes screenshots of everything, which is excellent. And I hope that Apple fixes that to where they can do the same thing there, because not only for us as she and I, ministers of the gospel, even beyond that, I want to be saved. I don't want something to, I don't want something to accidentally pop up or whatever. And and I'm not saying it's 100%, whatever. It's not 100%
foolproof.
Gotcha. Something might get through. I don't know, but it's gonna block the majority of stuff, and then it's going to send a screenshot.
Something's better than nothing.
That's exactly right. And we all need, beyond that, we all need some person that's able to help us maintain the guardrails. Yeah. We can't just put up guardrails or fences and leave them and say, oh, there they are. No, they have to be maintained.
Right.
When we do that, we have a little conflict here when my spiritual leader says, we've set this guardrail and you're bumping the guardrail. You are scarred from head to toe from where you've been riding up and down that guardrail.
Wow.
There is a little conflict here.
Yeah.
So we have to be okay with that conflict that keeps us from going into the danger zone. It keeps us from straying. It keeps us from swerving off over to the place we don't need to be. Another thing is we need to quit listening to the media.
Okay.
Political media, in particular.
Yeah.
Our culture thinks that moral guidelines are stupid.
Wow.
Our culture thinks that
moral
guidelines are stupid, and even a lot of Christians that I talk to think that moral guidelines are stupid. And personally, I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
I gave the example about the river. Without the banks, we have no flow. Without the banks, we have no force. Without those boundaries in our life, there's nothing to give us depth. We need the depth. That's why so many Christians are shallow.
Wow.
Or I shouldn't say so many. I don't know how many are, but that's why there are a lot of Christians that are shallow.
Yeah.
They don't have banks. They don't have boundaries to give them depth.
That's good.
I referenced Mike Pence, our former vice president, I reference him a lot because he as vice president, he was hounded a lot. And that's just the first time. That's just when I got to see him and hear a lot of him. He was hounded by the media for his stand on moral and ethical principles. He wouldn't go into a hotel room until it had been checked to make sure that there was not someone in there, whether they had ill intentions or not. Yeah. The idea was, I don't want somebody to be in there and then somebody run out as I'm in the room, and we have this conflict in the room and then they run out. I don't want them to run out and people to be like, oh, he had somebody in his
paparazzi's everywhere.
Absolutely. He said it's what it looks like. So he wouldn't go into an elevator alone with someone of the opposite sex. Now, obviously, he had a lot of Secret Service people that were not going to let him out of his sight as vice president, and even now. But then, before that, he said these were my principles that have been in place for years in my life.
You don't just develop that overnight.
No, somebody said, so you would not get in an elevator with a female, and he said no. He said, I'm going to say, oh, okay, have a good night. I'll catch the next one. And he said,
always the stairs.
He said, if it would have done that 15 times, he said, I would have just waited. He said, because that was just a guideline, a guardrail in my life. Another one was he wouldn't schedule a lunch date with someone of the opposite sex if it was just going to be those two. If it was going to be him and another female that was not his spouse, he would, if he had to have the meeting, then he would have it in an open area, in a public area, not behind closed doors, out in front of people. And he always met in public places. And my final words, have principle.
Yeah.
Just have principle. It's if you like to hug the line, you're going to eventually have a wreck. It may not be today. If you like to take your half out of the middle of the road, then you're eventually going to have a wreck.
Yeah.
We have to stop saying, is it a sin to fill in the blank, whatever. Is it a sin to do this? Because what we're really asking is, how close can I get without actually sinning?
Right.
And that's the wrong question. If we're asking how close can we get to sin and still not sin, then in turn we're asking, well, how far away from God can I get and still be right with Him?
Right. That's so good.
How distant can you be from your spouse before?
That's where Jesus dealt with the thought.
Yeah.
If you've just thought it, you've already crossed the line. I mean,
if you've looked after a woman.
Yeah. You've already done the deed.
Yeah.
Jesus laid the law out right there because He knew that there were so many people that were, like you said, they're by the book, they're by the law, but
grace deals more with the attitude than the action.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said, let's deal with this before it becomes an action. So that would be my final words today.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Thank you for the opportunity again. This was
absolutely. Thank you for being on here. For now and forever and for always. He didn't know he was signing up for this for the rest of his life. But I got him.
Rope me in. Well, the pay is great, so.
Oh, gotta love that. Gotta love it.
Twice as much as the last podcast I was on.
Oh, Lord. That's awesome.
Anything plus nothing.
Or nothing plus nothing.
True. Nothing times two.
All right. Well, I hope the show has encouraged you in some way. I would like to thank you for listening and for being part of the kingdom of God. We love you. We appreciate you. Just leave us a comment. If it's a dad joke that you'd like to hear on the podcast, leave that in the comments. Give this podcast a like and share it with somebody that you know, somebody that you don't know. Share it with a coworker. Share it with a random stranger. That's all I got. Love you. Thank you, everyone.